In anime and manga, there are two pivotal villains that we all look at when it comes to hatred. These two come from great mangas. While the first one comes from a manga that has just ended, the other one comes from one of the greatest mangas that's ever been released. And so I'm assuming you read the title thumbnail, and I'm assuming that's why you clicked on, so there's no point in me beating around the bush. In today's video, I want to solve who is the greatest hater. Is it Sukuna or is it Dio? But hold up, wait. If you guys enjoy this type of content, and obviously this video, make sure to like and subscribe, since I will be providing you guys with way more content like this. But that's enough of the chit chat. Let's get straight into the video on why you're here. Let's talk about Sukuna and Dio and truly find out who the stronger hater is. Now to begin, I'm obviously going to have to go over their feats and whatever and then get into the battle. But first I'm going to go over Dio, since I haven't actually covered a single JoJo on this channel outside of like a few videos. Now to begin with Dio is somebody that is very kind of concrete in the scaling, and unlike Sukuna, I don't think there's very like flippy floppy stuff with his scaling. In this fight against Jotaro, Dio is seen evenly matching Jotaro when he's serious, and as we know, serious Jotaro is somebody you quite literally do not want to mess with. To blow in a hole in his school like this, we can easily scale Jotaro to obviously city block level, and so because of that we can now scale Dio to city block level. Now what's very interesting about this is that sometimes you could see Dio actually punching with his stand, and you could even say that Dio in certain ways could be equal to his stand, but I don't want to do that here since it isn't concrete and obviously there are things that can debunk that. But if you wanted a few Dio highballs, that is a way you could do that. And there's also a feat from part 1 where Jonathan, with a little bit of an amp from obviously Zeppeli, is able to take out Tarkus, who was able to lift a mountain with his finger. Now me personally, I'm not going to use that since I believe that's kind of cheesy, but if you want to use that, you can use that and that's up to you. But me personally, I'm going to keep him at city block level plus. Moving on to Dio's speed, it's quite easy to put him at faster than light since his stand is faster than light, and we can see him obviously punching with his stand and doing certain things with his stand, and he's able to react to Jotaro and whatnot, so putting him at faster than light is pretty much concrete. We know this because Silver Chariot is faster than light when unarmored, and obviously Jotaro's stand Star Platinum was able to fight that and obviously be faster than it, and Dio is of the level of Star Platinum. So yeah, the world, and if you want to say Dio as well, is faster than light. Along with his AP and speed, he can take the punches of Jotaro, which obviously was city block level, so that's another thing for his durability as well. And for his endurance, he can endure a lot since he's able to take many holes through himself and obviously regenerate on top of that. When covering Dio's hacks later, I'm going to get into that, but obviously for now, you're obviously going to know that he does have regeneration to back up his endurance. And lastly, we have his battle IQ, and Dio is very smart in battle. I say when he's not consumed by rage and moving like an ape, he's able to obviously master things really well, and as we saw in part 1, he was able to master his vampire body extremely quick. And obviously with him mastering his stand really quickly and during battle as well. So yeah, Dio is somebody who is very smart and got to the places where he is because of his smarts. And lastly, we have his hacks. Now for part 3 Dio, I don't believe he has the exact same regeneration as he did in part 1, since in part 1 he had some crazy regeneration. Like I'm talking, this guy was split down the middle and he was still moving. Like that's not normal. Well, of course he's a vampire, but yeah, as I just said, he's a vampire and he can suck the blood out of you. But yeah, due to his body swap with Jonathan, obviously he lost a lot of his cool abilities like the eye lasers, which were broken as hell. But he kept his regeneration, which is something that it's good to keep. Although it's not as broken as it was in part 1, it's still something that he can keep, and obviously he can fuel his regeneration by taking people's blood. Now the main ability he's going to be spamming in this battle, and any sort of battle he's ever going to be in, is his time stop. And obviously time stop comes from his stand, the world. Now time stop is literally as it says, he stops time completely, and unless you have time stop yourself or you can move in time being stopped, he's basically invincible in the amount of time that he has. By the end of part 3, he can stop time for 11 seconds, so that means that for 11 seconds he can stop time and do whatever he wants to. Pause, because that sounds very brazy. Also yes, for 11 seconds he can do whatever he wants to, and the fact that he can stop time and do whatever he wants for 11 seconds is kind of crazy, because you got to think about it. For 11 seconds you're basically defenseless and you can't really do much. You have to just rely on your base like durability to help you through anything if he wants to attack you. And obviously this is going to be a massive factor in the fight later, so I think with that I'm going to close Dio off and go on to Sukuna. Now with Sukuna, his scaling is pretty shaky since Gege doesn't really know what he's doing in terms of like actual scaling. He just throws a bunch of things together and just lets the story run. But enough with the Gege slander, let's get into Sukuna's scaling. For AP, I would say Sukuna is around like multi-city block level to obviously town level. If you want to put him up to city level, then that's fine, but he's gonna be at town level for me, up to small city level for me, since obviously his feats do range quite a bit. I say this because we're able to see Gojo with one holo purple take up like what, a portion of Shinjuku, and along with that we do have Sukuna himself taking out large chunks of Shinjuku and Shibuya whenever he uses Fuga technique, so I'd say small city level was probably the best place to put him. Now speed is very contentious, as there are statements saying that people in JJK are barely above Mark 3, but then there are people that have lightning based techniques that make them obviously massively hypersonic. So with those two things coming around, for Sukuna I'm going to be nice to him and say that he's massively hypersonic, and this is purely off of his fight against Kashimo, where he's obviously able to react even in his Meguna form, but then after that he just completely bullies Kashimo. Now for durability, we have seen Sukuna take attacks ranging from building level to obviously then small city level, and he's come out fine from them both. I say fine, but from the Gojo one he was pretty banged up, so yeah, from those type of attacks he will be banged up, but he can take building to obviously those sort of level attacks. For endurance, Sukuna has amazing stamina as he's able to fight for long periods of time, and he does have RCT, which is what I'm going to go over in this hack section, but just for your knowledge, yes, he can heal as well. His adaptability and everything that he does when it comes to sorcery and whatnot, and just him fighting is very good, unless he wants to be stubborn like when he's against Yuji. But aside from that, yes, Sukuna can combat things very well, as we saw in his fight against Gojo. Now for Sukuna's hacks, it's very easy to understand these, but obviously some people can get messed up with these, so I'm going to explain it to you in a very like Ooga Booga way. For reverse curse technique, outside of Hikari, there isn't anybody else that can do it just like him. I mean, Gojo is probably up there as well, obviously he's up there, but I wouldn't say that it's better than Sukuna. I mean, you can eat me alive in the comment section for that, but me personally, I feel like Sukuna has better reverse curse technique. Now because of that, it will take a little bit to kill Sukuna, but if you're able to obviously hit him in his brain and whatnot and just destroy his head, then he can't really heal from that. But if you don't do that, then it's going to take a lot. And I say this because this is the exact same guy that was walking around without a heart in his chest, and he was moving like it was fine, so he can endure a lot minus his RCT. And moving on from his RCT, we're going to go on to his curse techniques, and that is obviously Cleave, Dismantle and Fuga. Now out of Cleave and Dismantle is more of the harmful one that obviously everybody should be scared of, because that is just a straight cut, and that is very lethal. While Cleave, what Sukuna does is he kind of adjusts it to your level to obviously where you can then like do certain things with it. It's the one that's like very pretty, while Dismantle is the one that's more lethal in my eyes. With Cleave, Sukuna can do things that make spider webs and whatnot and cut things in certain places and stuff, while Dismantle is just like a straight cut. And the reason I say Dismantle is probably the more harmful one is because when Sukuna does Dismantle, he can obviously use the regular version, which is still very powerful, or he could do the world cutting slash, and as you heard it's the world cutting slash. It cuts through anything. And to pair up along with them, he has Fuga. Now we obviously see him use Fuga a few times. He only uses it when it kind of needs to be used, but when he does use Fuga, just know that the whole entire area you're in is getting blown up. There is no if, buts or whys. It's getting blown up. And obviously along with that, he then has his domain expansion where it can span a large radius and it can basically just cut anything in its path. Because Sukuna is different, he's able to use his domain expansion on people that don't even have cursed energy, which means that even if you don't have cursed energy, you're still going to get cut by those slashes. Usually sorcerers have domain expansions that only affects people with cursed energy, but with Sukuna's it's kind of different. And so with that being said, I don't think I've left anything else out, and if I have, don't worry, I'm going to bring it up during the versus battle. But yeah, with Sukuna done, let's move straight into the versus battle. Now to start this off, I want to make one thing clear. Both of them can see obviously each other's abilities and whatnot, because they already have some sort of like spiritual awareness about them. Stans being spiritual and obviously cursed energy and whatnot being spiritual as well. I believe that they'll be able to obviously see each other's things. So like Sukuna can see his stands and Dio should be able to see Sukuna's techniques and whatnot. And with that, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, and that is the gap between the AP. Although the gap between the AP isn't really that big, it's something that will obviously play a factor here, since if Sukuna lands a few blows on Dio, it's going to really matter. But on top of that, we need to obviously talk about the gap between their speed, and that is something that's also going to impact this fight a lot. In my opinion, Sukuna has a lot of ways to deal with Dio, but obviously Dio has that time stop, and I think the time stop, in my opinion, is what's leaning me more towards Dio. Due to Dio being able to use his time stop so many times, and because he's obviously faster than Sukuna, he's able to dodge these certain attacks that he may use and whatnot, and all the time stop capabilities that he does have, Dio could easily just close out the battle as soon as it starts. Time stops, run up to Sukuna, and obviously with Sukuna not defending himself with cursed energy, he's able to be damaged by Dio, and Dio could probably just crush his skull and everything and just leave it as that. But then obviously I'm not going to take away the fact that Sukuna does have techniques that can just eviscerate Dio on the spot. This isn't part 1 Dio where he's got crazy regeneration, he does have crazy other techniques that could counter Sukuna. No, this is part 3 Dio where he's obviously has none of his like old techniques, and the only thing he does have is regeneration, and obviously his AP and his durability isn't up to the spec of Sukuna. But as I said before, what's really stopping Sukuna from winning is mainly Dio's time stop and his speed. And on top of that, if Dio really wants to, he could take a bit of Sukuna's blood, and I don't know how that would work. What would that do to Dio? Would that like make him like mutate or whatnot, or would that just keep him as regular Dio and he just gains certain things from Sukuna? Now let me not lie, it would be very cool to see how Dio would react to Sukuna's blood, but obviously I'm not here to theorize over that, I'm here to debate who'd win in the fight. And yeah, in my opinion, I believe that Dio would just take the fight since his time stop is very potent. Sukuna won't be able to defend himself and cursed energy, so which that it just stops him from doing a lot of his things. So yeah, I do believe that Dio would win the fight. And if you really want me to be cheesy, we could have an outcome where Dio just sucks all the blood out of Sukuna in those 11 seconds, and Sukuna is basically just a pile of skin and bones. That is something that could happen, and if you want that to happen, then obviously yeah, go ahead. But that is something that could happen in those 11 seconds, and yeah, I just think there are too many concrete ways for Dio to win. While in Sukuna, there are many ways he can win. There are many like win cons, but I don't believe they're as concrete as Dio's. But with that being said, if you guys disagree, you know what to do. Comment down below, have an argument. If you want to say that Dio can't stop time before Sukuna can do anything, or you want to say that, oh yeah, 100% Dio can beat Sukuna, then go down below and obviously debate that. But yeah, in my opinion, I just believe that because they're so close in AP and in durability, it allows Dio to obviously stop time and deal damage to Sukuna while time is stopped. If the gap was wider, like I don't know, Sukuna was planetary while Dio was obviously where he is now, then Dio won't be able to damage him. The only thing he can do is try to suck his blood, and that's about it. But yeah, that's my sort of like way I see Dio winning the fight, so that's about it for me. Thank you for all the support, and I will see you in the next video. I love you guys.